They say some secrets are best left buried, but
No
Mama
one will
Adanna
know.
didn't know. She was digging her own grave. This is a story of a mother's pride, a buried curse, and the heavy price of a blessing destroyed. Stay with me. You won't believe how this ends. In the village of Umudi, Mama Adanna was a woman of high standing. She had one son, Chidi, her pride, her joy, and her retirement plan. But when Chidi brought home Omara, a girl from a humble lineage, Mama Adanna didn't see a daughter-in-law. She saw a thief. The day Chidi introduced Amara to his mother, the air in the compound turned cold. Amara knelt respectfully, offering a basket of fruits and a soft greeting. But Mama Adanna barely looked at her.
So
So,
this is her.
this is her,
The girl from that
Mama
small
Adanna
village with
said,
no name.
her voice sharp as broken glass. The girl from that small village with no name. Chidi's face fell. Mama, Amara is a graduate. She is kind. She is the one I have chosen. But Adanna had already chosen a different path, a dark one. Mama Adanna didn't waste time. She began her campaign quietly, like poison in a well. First, she sabotaged the bride price ceremony. The night before the elders were to present gifts to Amara's family, Mama Adanna switched the contents of the ceremonial bag. When the elders opened it in front of Amara's father, instead of money and cloth, they found stones and torn paper. The insult was unbearable. Amara's father stood in shock. The elders were furious. And Mama Adanna, she sat in her compound smiling to herself. But that wasn't enough. She went to the market and whispered lies into the ears of the women who sold palm oil and dried fish. I hear that girl's mother practices witchcraft, she said, her voice dripping with false concern. And her father, a drunkard who beats his wives, my son deserves better. The gossip spread like wildfire. Soon even the church women began to look at Amara with suspicion. Still, Chidi refused to let go. So Mama Adanna took the final step. She visited a spiritualist on the edge of the village, a man who worked in shadows and spoke in riddles. She sat across from him in a dim, smoke-filled room, her hands trembling, not with fear, but with determination. You want to separate them? The spiritualist asked, his voice low and ominous. Permanently, Mama Adanna replied. He handed her a small black pouch tied with red thread. Bury this at the entrance of her family's compound. She will never cross your son's threshold as a wife. Mama Adanna took it without hesitation. That very night, under the cover of darkness, she dug a shallow hole and buried the charm. She whispered a prayer, not to God, but to her own pride. But she didn't know the ancestors were watching. The wedding was called off. Omara left the village in tears. Chidi was heartbroken, but his mother convinced him it was for the best. Mama Adanna had won. Or so she thought. Strange things began to happen. First, her money disappeared. She kept her savings in a locked wooden box beneath her bed. One morning, she opened it to find it completely empty. No sign of a break-in, no footprints, just gone. Then her health began to fail. She woke up drenched in sweat, clutching her chest, gasping for air. Doctors found nothing. Herbalists were confused, but every night she had the same dream. In the dream, she stood alone in a misty void. In front of her was a glowing calabash, half buried in the earth. She walked closer, her heart pounding, and then she saw it. Carved into the side of the calabash, in letters that seemed to burn, was her own name, Adanna. A voice spoke from the shadows. It was the voice of an ancestor, a woman she had never met, but whose presence she could feel in her bones. Do you know what you have buried, Adanna? Mama Adanna's voice shook. I buried a charm to protect my son. The ancestor stepped forward, her face stern but not cruel. You did not bury her future. You buried your own blessing. The calabash cracked open. Inside were images, visions of her son's happiness, of grandchildren she would never meet, of peace she would never know, all of it turning to dust. Every time you tried to destroy her joy, God the ancestor said, you buried a piece of your own. Pride has made you a grave digger of your own life. Mama Adanna fell to her knees, sobbing. She woke up gasping. But when she tried to stand, her legs wouldn't move. When she tried to scream, no sound came out. She was paralyzed, silenced. The village whispered that the ancestors had punished her. Chidi rushed to her side, confused and heartbroken. A traditional healer was called. After examining her, he spoke gravely. There is a knot in this family that only a confession can untie. Days passed. Mama Adanna, now humbled and broken, could only communicate by writing on a small chalkboard. Finally, she wrote the truth. Chidi read it aloud to the family and to Amara's family. I sabotaged the bride price. I spread lies. I buried a charm to curse Amara. I was wrong. Forgive me. Amara looked at her, not with anger, but with sadness. I forgive you, Ma. The moment those words left Amara's lips, Mama Adanna gasped. Her voice returned, her legs began to move, but the lesson remained. In the end, Mama Adanna regained her voice, but her home remained silent. Her pride ruined her son's future and shattered her own, and the blessing she tried to bury is never returned to her doorstep. Amara never came back. She found a man who cherished her and a mother-in-law who called her daughter. Chidi moved to the city and rarely visits home. Mama Adanna has her house, her gold, and her pride, but she sits in a very quiet home. Be careful what you bury to keep for yourself. You might find you've buried the only thing that could have kept you warm in your old age. Tell me, if you were Amara, would you forgive her? Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice carries a story of its own. I am Bella Bells. See you in the next story.